Adoptive father, don't make bullet comments and scold me. I'm just like you. Man-made swordsman, I am a cow and a horse. Every time the damn alarm goes off. Just to remind us, it's time for the herd to work. And we think the time. Could it be the greatest deception in human history? The deception may be exaggerated. I'll call it an illusion. The earliest chronograph of mankind. Babylon was born about 6,000 years ago. Timing has become more and more accurate since then. We live by him and measure him, and it feels like he's disappearing. Our lives really revolve around him. But if time is only perceived, instead of the real one, at first glance, doubt about the existence of time seems absurd. Because your alarm goes off every morning, will remind you again and again. It's time for cattle and horses to wake up. Your boss's Rolls Royce still needs your efforts. Go further and get back to the point. Scientists have been emphasizing anything we can physically measure must exist. However, some famous physicists are discussing develop without time. The potential of new physical theories. Are they crazy, or might they have discovered something new? If we think what we know about, everything in time is an illusion. It's just our understanding of the universe, maybe even our own brains. A byproduct of limited understanding. What to do? The answers to these questions and more. It's out now. For centuries, the concept of time seems simple and unchanging. Isaac Newton, one of the greatest thinkers in history. He believed that time was absolute. It's a universal constant. For everyone, everywhere, all go by at the same speed. In his opinion, the universe is like a giant clock, perfectly accurate and predictable. Time is the stability that governs all events. Rhythm flows independently of everything else. But in the early 20th century, Albert Einstein's appearance completely changed that idea. His revolutionary theory of relativity shattered Newton's point of view, and it shows that time is not an absolutely fixed quantity. It's relative, intertwined with space, forming what we now call space-time. According to Einstein, time can stretch and compress. It can speed up and slow down. It depends on your speed, or with planets, or the proximity of massive objects like stars. For example, compared to static people, at nearly the speed of light, those who move will feel that time passes much slower. The same people standing on the surface of the Earth feel the flow of time than people standing in outer space. They go slower. This discovery shocked the world and forever changed our understanding of reality. He buried the concept of absolute time in his grave. However, even Einstein's elastic spacetime, it may not be possible to cover the full story. Some modern physicists, such as Carlo Rovelli, more radical ideas were proposed. Rovelli, in his influential book, The Order of Time, points out the time we experience may not exist at all. He believes that time is not a fundamental feature of reality. It's a construct due to the way our brains are wired, and our perspective is very limited. What we impose on the universe. Our brains invented the concept of time to understand the world, imposing causality on time. Make them seem reasonable and not confused. You think Lovely's idea is just a stream. Are rogue scientists talking nonsense? Specifically, he is the best in the world, one of the most respected physicists, and one of the architects of the attractive force of the loop. Circle quantum attractive force is the collar of everything. First theory attempts to reconcile general relativity, the gap between quantum mechanics and it is not in the same circle as Zhang Zhanggexian's unified field theory. Don't leave any more messages to mention him. Rovelli is not the only one. Scientists who advocate the eternal model. University of California philosophy professor Craig Callender. It also asks whether time is an illusion. Feeling problem. He said that only by breaking down the world into this system and study what brings them together, time can exist. So where does this idea that time is not real come from? They come from quantum mechanics. So here's some background. In Einstein's general theory of relativity, he described the attractive force of large-scale objects, like our bodies, planets, stars, and galaxies. See time as an inherent part of reality. Time and space are intertwined into it's called spacetime. He can operate at high speed or in the presence of gravity, distortion, and expansion. But in quantum mechanics, time is not malleable and not like other quantum systems. Attributes change like that? In fact, record the passage of time. The observer is required to consult the clock outside the object. In other words, there is no arrow of time in quantum mechanics. In fact, quantum theory can be in a way that doesn't even include time. But in practice, every time we observe a change or development, quantum process of transformation, we all do, through the classic timing method to give the system ticking during application to measure progress. Does time really exist on a quantum scale? Still a question mark, unsure at present. But here's what we do know. Unlike general relativity, time in quantum mechanics is not on the offensive. This makes us think about the two best theories of reality: general relativity and quantum force. Learning is at a fundamental impasse. This conflict is known as a matter of time, and it raises the question of what time is. Is it a real and unique phenomenon? Rovelli thinks, in the field of quantum attractive forces, when people try to combine the two theories. For example, in the loop quantum attractive force, time becomes irrelevant. Some equations that describe the universe at the smallest scales, for example, a quantum description of gravity, Hilliard-Witt equation. It doesn't even include time. According to these equations, the universe can be described purely in terms of events and relationships, and it doesn't require a timeline. So here's the thing: event. How can it happen without the passage of time? It's a very difficult thing to imagine. At least by the standards of quantum mechanics in Copenhagen, one way of thinking about interpretation is, with quantum waves, a series of interactions take place in the form of a shuttle, the wave function of a particle, every time. It collapses when it interacts with its surroundings, and a series of waves collapsed, one after another. It feels like the passage of time. This metaphor is like a set of dominoes. Every domino falls once. The collapse of the cold and heat put them in a series. It looks like time is passing by. Rovelli said, don't put reality as an example of moving through space and time. We think of it as a network of interactions. He said the incident, rather than things being a fundamental part of reality. For example, it's like watching a movie. What you really see is a series of static images, or a typical movie, running at 24 stitches per second. But your brain doesn't see individual pictures. As time goes by, he looks like a continuous movie. Again, he said our universe is not made up of time groups. They're made up of interactions between particles. He believed that everything in the universe was like this. Time only allows us to understand these aspects, a way of interacting. Actually, there's no universal clock ticking in the background. There's an article in a magazine that varies from PZ to PZ. The new paper appears to support this view. The author indicates that. And the key to this is quantum entanglement. Next, I will explain how they come to this conclusion. The paper demonstrates entanglement. How could it be the root of time? The author believes that time at the quantum level is due to correction, a phenomenon that appears in entanglement. Their experiments revealed that the time of an object emerges through its quantum entanglement. Another quantum object acts as a constant, but for an unentangled system, time doesn't exist, and the system treats the universe as frozen and unchanged. They discovered that by entangling two quantum states, one is vibrating Z, Zen Z. The second one is a set of tiny magnets that punch right in the middle. Their system can be used with Schrödinger, a perfect description of the equation. This equation can predict the behavior of quantum objects, but their version of the famous equation. It is based on acting as the state of the tiny magnet in time, instead of time. This shows that the entanglement with the clock represents the quantity, subfield time. It is worth noting that they not only define time in terms of quantum entanglement, and also found that their equations were reduced to classical equations of physics. This shows that even for large-scale objects, the flow of time is also the result of entanglement. So even if we are in classical, time in the world is also created by entanglement. But of course, we only experience it as beautiful, good old-fashioned copy time. But if time is not fundamental, why does he feel to us so real? Why do we think about the past? The present and the future are very different, Rovelli thinks. The answer lies in our ignorance. The flow of time we perceive, moving forward from the past to the future, is that we cannot see all the microscopic aspects of the world, the result of details. Our limited knowledge, force, allows us to experience the world in a simplified way. Time seems to flow in one direction, one tick at a time, rather than everything happening at the same time. He said forced. Make this perception of time ticking, a key concept that goes in only one direction, is caused by thermodynamics. This is the injury. The quotient is simply defined as a measure of the degree of disorder. Second law of thermodynamics. In any closed system, quotient tends to increase over time. If you don't know, you can watch my 129th video exploring the thermodynamic code of the universe, Rovelli thinks. Between time, the reason why we feel time moving forward, directly related to an increase in injuries, except for the forward tick of the clock. Our brains, there is no other way to explain this. Steady progress towards more and more disorder. The universe began in a low-damage state, a highly ordered state. Since then, he just kept going in a more disorderly direction. An increase in injuries gives us the illusion that time is moving forward. It's not that time itself is flowing. It's about time flowing. It's that the universe is getting more and more disordered. However, not all physicists agree with Liouville. Radical views. Some people, like Rismorim. Time is not an illusion. It's a fundamental aspect of the universe. Smalling in his book, Time Reborn. It challenges the idea that time is nothing more than human perception. He believes that if we take time seriously as the reality of the universe and basic properties, he might lead us in understanding the laws of physics, make new breakthroughs. Smalling thinks the laws of the universe themselves may evolve over time. Only by acknowledging the authenticity of time, we can fully grasp the mysteries of the universe. So where does this lead us? Time is an illusion. Is it a product of our limited brain? Or is it an inherent part of the universe? Like stars and galaxies, matter is as real as energy? To answer this question, we need to think more fundamentally. What is physics? Not what. This might also help answer why do most physicists support time, and calmly assure you that time does exist. Although physics, to some extent, guided by philosophy, but the core mission of physics, it has passed some rigorous tests that can be tested. Lattice mathematical models to explain the deeds around us. Many aspects of physics start with the opposite. For example, some multiverse theories. They can be regarded as well-defined theories, but only philosophy, because they can't be tested, verification, or forgery. But when a physical theory cannot be tested, he's not much use. The idea that time is not real seems to be one of these incorrect assertions. We humans experience qualitative things. It was time. From a theoretical perspective, we can explain it quantitatively in theory and measure it on countless clocks. That being the case, how can we believe that time is not real? Really? General relativity, etc. Indeed, the concept of time becomes fundamental components of reality. But we have to remember, the same theory, it also abolished the concept of gravity. General relativity is solved by abolishing the attractive force. The issue of attractive force, he showed that attractive force is just an emerging feature of the curvature of spacetime, rather than Newton's definition of matter, or the fundamental properties of the universe. So, can time also be proven not to be ein? What about the fundamental properties of the universe as defined by Stan? Of course, it is possible. Future theory can make attractive force a real benefit again, and prove that general relativity is wrong. But even if that happens, still at least, there needs to be something that matches our observations, the emerging concept of time. But we want to know the true nature of reality, and not necessarily an observation of time seems to indicate something. We want to know the truth, but the truth is, physics has nothing to do with truth. His work, at most, it is necessary to establish a predictor that can make predictions, a reasonable model of the universe. At the fundamental quantum level, time is probably not real, but one paper doesn't prove it. But if repeated tests and multiple papers, it seems that from different angles, realize the unreal nature of time, and none of the experimental commissars have this, then we can begin to accept the truth of reality. The essence of reality is final. Time may be the greatest illusion of all. Certainly, and I have a very general question personally. Ask everyone. You eat when you're hungry. It's still a fixed time to eat. Welcome to leave a comment for discussion.